This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather Holders. Jeff Cutastrophe, and welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, 50 years ago, as I am taping this, in the year 1972, the United States took on the Soviets in a basketball game that was full of intrigue, suspicion, and just downright pissiness. It's the 1972 Olympic men's basketball final between the two powerhouses, the United States and the Soviets. This game would be humongous. The US and Soviet Union had a sporting rivalry of the ages, especially in basketball. The Americans had never lost a game in the Olympics of basketball. In 36, 48, 52, 56, 60, 64, 68. They were 63-0. The Soviets were coming for the Americans, winning silver in 4 of the last 5 Olympics before 1972, winning bronze in 1968, being shocked, I believe, by Yugoslavia. Or was it Cuba? Anyway, the Olympics at the time strictly prohibited any professional athletes, so the Americans didn't have the dream team. It was all that. The Soviet Union and other Eastern Bloc countries used the rule to their advantage because their top players were soldiers or workers, which could breach the amateur rules. And the Western athletes said they were professionals. Despite that, the Americans had not lost a match in basketball. They sent their star collegians, and it worked. All that. So, anyway, it was a huge matchup. The Americans in 1972 were very young and all that. The 72 team didn't have a clear leader. Bill Walton was supposed to play in the Olympics, but because of his political views, he did not want to participate. But they still had Doug Collins, who turned out to be a good coach and commentator, and Tommy Burleson, who was great for NC State. The Soviets had some stars, including Alex Belov. Anyway, the Soviets and Americans were playing for the gold. The Americans went to the final without any trouble. Brazil actually held them to a 7-point win, whereas the Soviets actually nearly blew it in the semis to Cuba, only winning by 6. So anyway, the game was huge. It was 49-48 for the Soviets when Doug Collins, at 7 seconds left, stole Alex Belov's cross-court pass and was fouled by Surab Sankandelisi as he drove towards the basket. He was actually knocked into the stanchion of the basket, but thankfully, though, Collins shook out the cobwebs and was awarded 2 free throws, sunk the first to tie at 49. But just as Collins lifted the ball to have his shooting motion to get the second free throw, the horn from the scorer's counter sounded. The referee actually turned away from the free throw attempt upon hearing the horn. But Collins did not break his shooting motion, making it 50-49 for the Americans. Anyway, the Russians thought they called timeout, but because they did not get the timeout, the Soviets had to do a play all that. However, the clock was stopped at 1 second. So anyway, the Soviets said they had an argument about the timeout. It was because it was called as soon as Collins was fouled. But a timeout could be requested either by informing the scorer's table directly or by pushing the button of electronic signaling device, which would illuminate a light bulb at the scorer's table to alert them for a timeout. Anyway, there were a lot of issues with that. And some say he didn't make the right free throw and all that. Anyway, R. William Jones, the Secretary General of FIBA at the time, later asserted the problem was human error at the scorer's table, and the timeout request was relayed too late. And some people thought that the Soviets left the designated bench area during live play, which meant that it's a technical foul. Rigetto, the official, denied the timeout and all that. Collins' second free throw counted, 50-49, and the Soviets had 3 seconds left. And the scoreboard said that there was no timeout. So, anyway, the problem was that Mr. Jones had a contentious relationship with American basketball officials for a number of years. And he wanted the final 3 seconds to be played and all that. He figured that resetting the clock was the correct course of action. So there was a second inbounds play. Anyway, it didn't matter. So anyway, they tried a long baseball pass from Ideshko to Alex Belov, but it was denied. And the horn sounded, game over, that's it. The Americans won anyway, so, okay, no controversy there. It was over. The title. Unfortunately, Jones was still involved in the process and said that the clock had to be reset because it wasn't properly reset to 3 seconds. And the coaches considered declaring the game to be over by pulling their team off the floor. But Hank Iba figured that the Soviets could appeal and the U.S. could have forfeited the game. And rumors were that R. William Jones said that the U.S. would get forfeit if they could not return to the floor. But Iba said, yeah, it was huge and all that. But some people said that it cost the Americans the game because, they would have been found out, it would have been true. So that was a 13-pound play. McMillan was assigned to use his height. But the official gestured to McMillan to back off and all that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Ideshko makes the pass to Alex Belov. He puts it in the net between 2 defenders. Game over. And the Americans were finally taken out. But after the game, ABC, when they did the broadcast, there was rumors that Ideshko stepped on the end line, meaning that he cleared the violation. You're not supposed to throw a pass from behind the end line without stepping on it. Anyway, Belov did it, and the Soviets win. The officials were argued with by the American coaches and players. So anyway, the United States had Jim Brewer, Tommy Burrows, and Doug Collins, Kenneth Davis, Tom Henderson, Tom McMillan, all great players. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. But the protest was huge. Rigetto, the referee, refused to sign the official state scoring sheet in an act of protest. So he didn't think it was right. And there was a detailed protest. They concluded that The final 3 seconds were consumed by the 2 seconds that elapsed on the first inbound play and the 1 second that elapsed on the second play, which meant the game should have been ending 49. Sorry. The protest asserted that allowing a third inbounds play brought it down that the game had to be more than 40 minutes. Anyway, the jury voted down the protest. And at the end of it, it didn't work. The vote count was 3-5. But unfortunately, it was found out that 3 of the 5 jury members were from Soviet allied nations, which thus meant that obviously they were going to say no to that. Anyway, it was amazing and all that. Well, the political motivations happened and all that. And they actually did think that panel members feared retribution from Jones if they said that the decision was incorrect. The U.S. players did not accept the jury's verdict, did not go to the medal podium to get their silver medals. They refused them and are still in Lausanne, Switzerland to this day. Anyway, the problem was that R. William Jones himself was known for his decision of the men's basketball final. He was controversially quoted later as saying, "The Americans have to learn how to lose even when they think they are right." So that was a humongous mistake by R. William Jones that he was there. And those quotes basically meant that, that you kind of figured that there was some kind of issue and all that. Anyway, there was a problem. Borghetto said that the confusion at the scores table was because he could only speak Portuguese and the score server could only speak German. All that. And other people said R. William Jones should not have been able to do that because he didn't have the authority. Anyway, USA Basketball has contacted the 1972 team members on behalf of the ILC to offer them the opportunity to change the stance and get silver medal. However, they basically said that they would refuse to accept their silver medals and all that. In fact, Kenny Davis had gone so far to have a clause put in his will forbidding his wife, children, or descendants to accept the silver medal. Anyway, ESPN did a 30 for 30 called Silver Reunion about the 1972 Olympic final. All that. Yeah, the ILC would not say anything about that. So, basically, whatever you want to say about this whole controversy, about the fact that, was it possible that it was politically motivated? Was it possible that R. William Jones purposely wanted the Americans to lose so that, maybe he was scared that because the Americans would win every match, that countries would pull away from basketball, saying, what's the point? U.S. Soviets are going to be at the final every year. Maybe he was doing it for the international game. He was unrepentant at that. And that's what people say, how evil he is. American basketball would not have the same joyous thing with the International Basketball Union until, they got to get their professionals in 1992 play basketball. So it was tough. But unfortunately, that's what happens sometimes. The Soviets kind of cheated their way to gold. The Americans have not accepted their silver. And a lot of countries say, the Americans are sore losers. But if you can figure what happened in 1972 in the first place about all the controversy, then you'll understand. However, the Americans were not undeterred. They won the 76 Olympic gold medal in basketball. They didn't participate in 1980 because of the Olympic boycott. 84 they easily won, mostly because the Soviets boycotted that Olympics. And in 88 they shockingly lost the semifinal and took bronze. So, yeah, in a way the Americans kind of rebounded. But the Soviets have the bottom. Anyway, that's just what happens. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.